This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. I struggle to find the motivation to replay games that I've already beaten. Part of that is related to the vast backlog of games behind me that I really should do something about at some point, but I often fear that there's nothing to be gained from revisiting games, other than maybe some nostalgic memories from a game from my childhood, but that just hurts. I don't want to say that I'm too busy to replay games anymore, but it sometimes feels like it, you know? I definitely need a reason these days rather than just a meaningless retreading of a game that I love, because I feel like I've digested everything that a lot of games out there have to offer me. To that end, I'd say there are games that are better suited for repeat playthroughs. Whether it's having different endings to aim for or aligning yourself with one of the other factions in the game, I really enjoy effectively having no choice but to play a game all over again in order to get the full experience. Obviously this extends beyond puzzle games like Tetris, where replaying is kind of the whole point, or short roguelikes like The Binding of Isaac, where again, kind of the whole point. I'm talking about 30, 40, 50 hour time sinks that I feel inclined to invest myself in all over again. That doesn't happen by accident. And to protect against the accidents in your internet life, we have today's sponsors ExpressVPN, a brilliant service that helps to encrypt your personal data and prevents hackers from stealing and invading your emails, your financial details, and anything else you share or don't share on the internet, including the fact that you watched this video. You don't want anyone knowing about that, right? Internet privacy is more important than ever these days, and since we seem to be doing everything through the internet, increased security is now vitally important. Internet service providers can see everything that you're doing, and depending on where you're from, ISPs keep records on your personal data and private conversations, and no one wants that. ExpressVPN is a simple but highly effective service that stops intruders from peeking at your internet usage by using the highest standards of encryption currently available, and it takes just a few moments and you're protected. Not only that, but you can use ExpressVPN for unblocking services like Netflix, so you can watch shows and movies that aren't available in your region. I wanted to test it out, and when my girlfriend wanted to watch Hairspray on Netflix, something that isn't available in the UK, I was able to use ExpressVPN to connect to a secure, stable server in the US, and wham! Hairspray on American Netflix. It was very, very easy. I can also watch Into the Spider-Verse now, which is also a very good idea. ExpressVPN is available for less than $7 a month that will give you access to over 3,000 remote servers in 94 countries across the globe, and with support for devices including Windows, Android, Mac, iPhone, smart TVs, and even routers. If this all sounds enticing to you and you want your personal data kept nice and safe on the internet, then make sure you click the link in the description and go to expressvpn.com/RabbidLuigi for 3 months absolutely free. Take back your privacy today with ExpressVPN. Right then, shall we play some games? Again? Every day I become more grateful for games with different playable characters and playstyles. It can sometimes be a bit daunting the first time you play a game and see how many options you have at your disposal, but I look at these as a great reassurance that there's plenty for me to do after a first run through. Borderlands sets its own stage as one that is big on player choice, where you can find a whole heap of guns that all do different things that lead to no two identical playthroughs. This is very important because large parts of these games can feel very similar, so you need something unique and interesting to latch onto so that you don't get bored. I'd argue that Borderlands 2 had more exciting things in it than any other game in the franchise, and when there's as much going on as there is here, it's just as well that Borderlands 2 has 4 playable characters, rising to 6 with DLC, that help shake things up in a hugely dramatic way. That way, it doesn't have to be all about the guns. If any of you out there can remember Battleborn, an underwhelming hero shooter from a few years ago made by Gearbox Software, you might be able to remember that Gearbox are actually pretty good at varied character design. Didn't work out so well with Battleborn, but they got the opportunity off the back of their brilliant work with Borderlands. Doesn't come much better than the characters in Borderlands 2. It's an encouraging sign that the worst character in your small roster is still incredibly interesting for what he does. Axton lacks the magic powers and ninja skills of other characters, but he does have a turret that shoots independently, so you can throw it at a large group of enemies and pick off any stragglers yourself. It's an interesting character to use, it feels unlike a lot of other shooters I play. I say Axton's the worst character, but that's only because he's a tad generic among a group of colourful individuals that encourage different playstyles through their sheer existence. It's not like Borderlands 2 is giving you the option of playing stealthily through some tactile mechanic given to the dual-wield guy, since there's an entire character you can choose whose whole shtick is turning invisible and cutting down bad guys with ease. With the DLC, they introduced someone who uses a giant mech robot to fight for her, and a psycho with a rage mechanic, and I'm just wondering, where was all of this in Battleborn? Maybe if those 25 characters had half the care that these 6 do, maybe Battleborn wouldn't be closing down next year. Sometimes it's best to stick with what you know. Some RPGs are made with repeat playthroughs in mind. Sometimes the structure of the game can stand in the way of this replayability, like how Pokemon lets you choose one of 3 starters, but only recently let you have more than one save file per cartridge. But I reckon any game out there, RPG or otherwise, that lets you side with one particular faction in a complicated conflict with more than a few options to choose from, that game is very nicely set up for you to play it twice or more, since you'll want to know what life is like on the other side. Evil routes are one thing and not necessarily a bad thing if the game somewhat agrees with you, but time and time again, I keep coming back to Fallout New Vegas, since not only are there a few major players to pick between, there's a whole bunch of smaller factions that you can recruit to your side that doesn't affect the bigger picture of who ultimately gains control of New Vegas. So, not every decision matters, and I'm fine with that. Choosing which faction you want to align yourself to has been a feature of Fallout games since I think before Bethesda got involved. So New Vegas giving you some choice as to whose side you can be on isn't anything new, but it's nicely focused here. You're not fighting over synth rights or whatever Fallout 76 did, it's just a power struggle for control over an important city and all the conflicting morals that come with it. Though, I say conflicting, but for the most part Fallout New Vegas makes it fairly clear who the good guys are. The New California Republic are definitely designed to be morally decent, although with no great tolerance should you start committing lots of crimes, but Siege's Legion are basically a group of psychopaths masquerading as a structured group who prefer to destabilize the region, so you don't win any prizes for guessing who are the intended side for you to follow. Although you can also join Mr. House, who currently rules New Vegas and wants it to return to its glory, or you can forego all of these and try to have New Vegas all to yourself without the aid of others, or you can subscribe to RabbidLuigi's YouTube channel and click the bell for notifications of every new upload, and I really like how radically different these choices make the world around you. Like, you'll make a decision and NPCs will act very differently depending on who you're with, something that has definitely been lacking in more recent Fallout games. Considering that Fallout 3 had no alignable factions, this kind of choice makes New Vegas feel like classic Fallout. Maybe just give the whole franchise over to Obsidian at this point. That's the difference between player choice and a game that claims that it has player choice. Fallout New Vegas exists in such a malleable world that you can morph into different shapes and you can go back through and have some fun with and play around with it and see what you end up with. Recent Fallout games have felt like a theme park where you can have all the fun in the world, but don't go and try and affect the world in whatever way you see fit, otherwise people will probably end up dead. If you think about it, replayability comes in so many different forms. It's not like there's one reason set in stone why the average player might want to play a game for a second time, and with games having so many moving parts to them, who knows which one single part someone is going to want to experience again. Or maybe it's not a need to do something again with slight alterations, but actually the desire to experience a story with the heavy knowledge of some kind of plot twist that changes everything? Not in a clickbaity, low-effort journalism way either, I mean a reveal that completely alters how you view every event in the game, both before and after the plot twist. There are honestly hundreds to choose from, but then I remember that I haven't talked about Speckles for Line for a little while, so let's brush up on that, shall we? This is a game all about context. What is a fairly mediocre shooter works perfectly under the context of looking and feeling like every other third-person shooter on the market, which sets you up like a gullible idiot when the rug is pulled out from underneath you and it's revealed that you've basically been the bad guy the whole time. You've come to a sandstorm-ridden Dubai with delusions of grandeur and preconceived assumptions that you're doing the right thing, because that's how video games work. And it's only when you're dumping liquid fire on civilians in blind faith that you're doing the right thing that the penny drops that you don't really have control over what you're doing. A second playthrough might seem like a terrible idea since you'll be repeating all the atrocities that are already permanently burned into the back of your mind, but it allows you to see all the foreshadowing and clever ways that Speckles for Line hinted at far darker events to come. My favourite might be the random silhouette of a hanging man from when you rappelled down an earlier building, because I remember seeing it the first time through and thinking it was a glitch or some kind of error with the glass's reflection, but then later one of your squad dies by being hung by locals, and the second time through it becomes so obvious so quickly. Sometimes a second run through is a good idea even if it makes you more depressed. Or maybe it was a dream all along. Would you ever replay a game that you weren't very good at? Possibly. You'd like to think that a second playthrough would demonstrate how great you've become at the game and all the mechanics, and as you breeze through earlier sections of ease, but imagine if you don't. After all that time, all that practice, there's still moments in the game that can trip you up and prove that you're not actually as good as you thought you were. Is that a good thing? The merciful side to all of this is that Dark Souls games tend to introduce their challenges slowly over time at the start rather than anything too drastic. The less forgiving side is the difficulty associated with Dark Souls, which might be engineered towards being relatively fair, with failure being the fault of the player, as long as you're not having fire dumped on you by a random unseen dragon, but you spend a great chunk of any time playing a Dark Souls game watching your character die over and over again. The prospect of beating the final boss, watching the credits, and enjoying your success with a view towards one day doing all of this again from the beginning, I mean, how much do you have to hate yourself? The thing is, if you're good enough at Dark Souls to reach the end, having overcome some challenges along the way that get fairly brutal at times, it's entirely possible that you've picked up some knowledge on how to play this game with some efficiency. Hopefully you'll have gotten through the early stages of throwing yourself at enemies with no fear, but a lot of getting your butt handed to you for being too aggressive. Parrying is your best friend, but also tricky to master, so it might not be something you do a lot of during your first playthrough, but it becomes the most powerful tool in your arsenal as you waltz your way through Dark Souls on a second run through. Until you've done it yourself, I can't adequately describe to you how empowering it is to stroll through entire sections of a difficult game that previously gave you so much trouble. You've done the hard yards and now you can enjoy your victory lap with a playstyle that you recognise, or you can see what easy mode is like with Pyromancer and Sorcerer turning the game into a third-person shooter where everyone else has a sword. Being able to breeze through Dark Souls is a feeling unlike any other you'll like to have playing video games, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone watching this video. Ornstein and Smough are still assholes though. BioWare know how to make a game replayable. Maybe not now, because I'm not sure they know how to make a game playable for any great period of time before the glitches or tedious game loop closes around your neck like a noose and chokes the life out of you. But BioWare did incredible work with the Mass Effect games that practically necessitated replays to play around with different combinations of crew members for tasks and deciding which alien you wanted to take to bed with you. I don't want to talk about Mass Effect today though, because BioWare were also responsible for a game with huge player choice, a massive plot twist that changes everything you thought you knew about the game, and oceans of replayability. And it's even Star Wars for an extra bonus. The first Knights of the Old Republic game came out at a time when the world wasn't as fatigued and burned out on Star Wars as we are now, and the result is a meticulously designed RPG that throws you into an exciting world with so much to see and do, and so much that can be affected and changed by the player's decisions, making it impossible to see every outcome in one playthrough. So it's just as well then that this adventure comes with an earth-shattering plot twist where the game almost casually reveals that your playable character that you've nurtured and developed over the course of most of your journey is actually Darth Revan, the big bad guy of the story who disappeared after he was brainwashed by the Jedi to fight for them. So now you can have all sorts of fun and replay the game as the bad guy for the sake of flying in the face of convention and exercising your right to act on player choice and get the most out of Knights of the Old Republic's immense replayability. There are so many reasons why you might want to play this game again, you just need the motivation. And bad guys have plenty of that. This is RabbidLuigi, and with both BioWare and Star Wars enduring sticky patches in their reputations, now would be a pretty good time for another Knights of the Old Republic game. But this is very unlikely, because that's not how game development works, and also, I don't think BioWare would be trusted with such a risky project like this, but wouldn't it be amazing to get a game like that again? You know, after this video is done, maybe I'll launch the Kickstarter. I'll need a lot for the legal fees.
Have you got a topic that you'd like me to talk about next week? Make sure you leave a comment about that down below because I'll be taking the most interesting suggestions and making a poll on the next video. In fact, here's one right now that I prepared from last week. I'll be revealing the winner of the poll on Twitter and taking suggestions for games to talk about that are related to that topic. So feel free to follow me over there so we can keep in touch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.